Today I want to talk to you about the one person that I would like to interview in this world more than anybody else. The one person that I would like to have a conversation with more than anybody else. And that is a man by the name of Serban Ghenea. Somebody I'm guessing you have never heard of unless you've heard me talking about him in person. But he's somebody who I guarantee you are intimately familiar with his work. So what am I talking about? Let's get into it. So I discovered Serban Ghenea many years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but sometime in the past, let's say 10 years, I discovered him, although he's been around since the 90s. He is a mix engineer, and for those of you who don't know what mix engineering is, a mix engineer is somebody who takes a rough song and mixes it into a finished end product. So it's basically the difference between a demo and a final song. And this is something that I do and have done for many clients because I love audio and frequencies and making things sound bigger, taller, wider, deeper, more pleasing. All of those things that you associate with a finished record, that is what's called mixing. Serban Ghenea is a mixer who has worked over his career with some of the best artists in the entire world, and he probably has as many or more number one hits or top 10 hits under his belt than just about anybody that has ever lived. Now, my previous favorite mix engineer in the world is a man by the name of Bruce Swedien, who mixed, for example, all of Michael Jackson, like Thriller and all of those iconic albums. And the three-dimensional sound from Bruce Swedien is still just so unbelievable. For example, this book profoundly changed my life and the way I think about audio and recording. So Bruce Swedien is legend number one, but he's sort of a previous era. Bruce Swedien came from, let's say, the 50s or maybe earlier and then worked his way towards Thriller. And now, of course, he's just gotten very old, so he's a bit out of the game. But Serban is the second wave. There are many different types of engineers out there who have number one hits, but I believe, and remember, I harp on and on about taste, I personally believe that Serban Ghenea is the greatest mix engineer of the modern era, Bruce Swedien aside. He has mixed artists like Taylor Swift, Britney Spears, Kelly Clarkson, Avril Lavigne, Justin Timberlake, Trolls soundtrack, Katy Perry. So anytime you hear these like number one hit records that just come out of nowhere, like remember when you heard Katy Perry was like a new artist, like Hot Then You're Cold or Yes Then You're, and everybody's like, whoa, that's fresh. I like that. Or Miley Cyrus is reinventing herself, or Haley Steinfeld suddenly has a hit on the charts. Anytime you hear that song on the radio and you're like, I should really listen to more of this person. I should really listen to more of The Weeknd. I should really listen to more of blah, blah, blah. You name a number one hit. It has almost certainly been mixed by Serban Ghenea. Almost universally. Of course, you can check out his website, serbanghenea.com, to see a small smattering of his discography. But what you can also do is check out my Spotify playlist that I created. I created a Spotify playlist many years ago, and it's actually growing in followers. Originally, it was just for myself to catalog his work. So if you look up Serban Ghenea on Spotify, that's my playlist, just because he is such an inspirational figure to me. So what about his work separates himself from many Grammy Award winners? What about his work is better than people who have done remarkable things, in my opinion? Well, I think there are tons of mix engineers out there. You've got guys like Manny Marroquin, Dave Pensado, Jimmy Douglas is another huge favorite of mine. Many mix engineers who have done just incredible things with sound. No doubt about that. But I personally believe that Serban is probably an alien. He's not just good. He has a way of thinking about frequencies that has profoundly changed my life. And he's set a bar so freakishly high that I've spent 10 years trying to even get close to it, and I just can't. He just keeps outdoing himself. Every time I think I get a little better, he does something even further along the way. He must have some sort of picture of what music needs to be in his head that is different from anybody else on the planet, because I have heard mistakes from just about any mix engineer that ever existed. I've heard like tiny little things where they de-essed, like work, 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 work. You see me, baby, work, work. Like, I've heard little teeny mistakes or compression or distortion or edits from every top mix engineer that you can pretty much name. I have really never heard a mistake from Serban Ghenea. He just doesn't do it. His S's, every single detail is perfect. Whether you listen on giant stadium speakers or you listen on cheap headphones or your iPhone, like his mixes are just bulletproof across every environment. He just absolutely gets it. And the world that he creates with sound is just out of this world. I mean, there's a reason that people go back to him when they need to have a hit, Ariana Grande or whoever. Like, when you need to have a hit, you need to have Serban mix your record. And oftentimes, if there are, let's say, 5 different mixers on an album, the ones that Serban has mixed just basically by default become the singles, they become the hits, they tend to get millions more plays, hundreds of millions more plays. The world just loves it. And that's just something that it just has that hit factor that nobody else really has. And if you're in, let's say, the continental United States or even parts of Europe, you can listen to pop radio and you can listen to an hour straight. I've documented this before, but I've been in the car in Colorado and I've listened to an hour straight of music. And during that entire hour, every song was mixed by Serban Ghenea. So when you think like, oh, that's just the sound of pop radio, 9 times out of 10, that's the sound of Serban Ghenea. Max Martin, one of the greatest producers in the entire world, only uses Serban Ghenea. Like, he will not make a record without him on it. And any big artist who's smart, it's like, if you have the budget for this guy, why would you ever hire anybody else for any reason? If I had the money, I would only ever have projects mixed by him. So I'm bringing this up just to tell you that it's such a major influence on my taste. That's part of this. But there is another part that I find so fascinating and why I introduced the video this way. I said he's somebody that I'd like to interview and talk to more than anybody else. So what is remarkable about this man is that there's nothing about him online. No social media profile. He has a website, but that website is just cover art for some of the work that he has done. That's it. There's no Twitter. There's only a few photographs of the guy, usually just winning a Grammy. He's kind of sort of awkwardly on stage accepting the award. He's not on Pensado's Place. He's not on any of the shows or YouTube. He's never pitching a product. He's basically like a ghost. He doesn't even live in California. He lives remotely in Virginia Beach, and he's able to mix hit after hit from there remotely. And it's just so fascinating that in this age where we think we have to promote ourselves, or we think we have to make videos like this video, we have to be on social, we have to do more content, Gary V, Gary V, Gary V. Here's a guy who has done none of that. He's just a deliberate ghost, and yet he has the most successful career in mix engineering that you can have in pop music. And I don't know exactly what his rates are, but I can tell you that his rates are higher than anybody else, and well deserved, and possibly even an order of magnitude higher than anybody else, because that's how good he is. That's how much of a slam dunk his work is. So in an era where we have to be out there and talk and communicate, he's done none of that. He's let the work speak for itself his whole career. And that is just rare. It's fascinating. He's somewhat of a mythical figure. Nobody really knows. So, until I created that playlist, there wasn't even really much about him in the way of like, what is his work? Now we're getting a bit more, but it's just very interesting that the top person in their craft at something, it'd be like the greatest film director that nobody knew who they were. If you didn't know who James Cameron or Steven Spielberg, it's just a truly, truly fascinating story. And if there's one person in audio that I respect and in mixing more than anybody else, it is Serban Ghenea. And if there's one person that I would love to sit down with and learn from, it would be him. And I would literally move to Virginia Beach just to study under this person. That's how insane I believe his level of talent is. And I don't think that any human could ever get there because, again, I think he's some kind of genius or savant. I don't think it's possible to practice your way to his level, but I think you can get close and learn some tips and tricks. So anyways, I thought I would share that because I tell you about taste, and this is, to me, the pinnacle of taste in the field of audio mixing. So hope you found that interesting.